welcome to our Sunday service. I am Kristen Plumley, and this is Ron Levy, and we will be leading the service today. We want to thank the team that made this morning possible, our Religious Education Director, Jean Namitz, our Art Director, Carol Wolf, and Benny Crespo and Jack Lohr, our invaluable technical advisors, and also Jeff Somerville for setting up all our new equipment here, including a new microphone and a new ring light so we can be seen. Woohoo! The Unitarian Society of Ridgewood has, for over 100 years, been a place of embracing welcome. Whatever your age, gender expression, sexual orientation, education, economic status, history, or theology, we welcome you, the fullness of who you are. Ours is a non-creedal faith that shares a deep belief in our interdependence and in the power of love, but does not impose any particular dogma with regards to the divine or the meaning of human living. Each of us, in our congregation and in our broader Unitarian Universalist faith, relates differently to the transcendent, to the mystery. Each of us shares, however, in our curiosity, our depth of reflection, and our attention to living our lives thoughtfully, meaningfully, and in a way that furthers justice, liberation, and freedom for all people. If you are interested in learning more about the Unitarian Universalism or about the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood, please visit our website at uuridgewood.org and email us at 113cottage@gmail.com. We can also then get you on our email lists, because email is our primary way of communicating these days. So please check and make sure you are receiving daily and weekly emails from USR. There's information about everything going on. We often begin our services by lighting our chalice. The Unitarian Universalist chalice is a symbol of the love and power within all of us. It's a symbol of the light that overcomes fear. It's a symbol of our unity. If you have a chalice at home, you can light it now and join us in the words for our chalice lighting, which will be on your screen. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action as we gather together in the circle of community. Now I invite you to take a deep breath and let it out. Gently close your eyes and listen.
Thank you, Kristen, and good morning, everybody. When COVID-19 forced the closing of stores at the end of February, liquor stores remained open. The rationale was that people that were reliant on the consumption of alcohol would have been forced into crisis. I remembered how I, as a younger man, had struggled with alcohol abuse, and how I had panicked when liquor was not readily available. This got me to thinking about today's addicts of various types. How are they dealing with their situations in these times? Were they able to access their various means of support? Doctors, counselors, sponsors, medication? Would emergency rooms and attendants even be immediately responsive while dealing with the flood of gravely ill COVID patients? This morning, we are so fortunate to have with us Keaton Douglas and Dave Kerr, both individuals who are profoundly invested in the treatment of addicts and in the ongoing effort to promote education and awareness about the issues surrounding addiction. We look forward to hearing their insights and remarks.
Please join us for our hymn, What Wondrous Love. It's number 18 in the gray hymnal, and the words will appear on your screen.
Away the pain of my soul.
Takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down. When I was sinking down, sinking down. When I was sinking down, beneath my sorrow crown, friends to me gather round. Oh my soul, friends to me gather round. Oh my soul. To love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends who grieve and sorrow mend. With thanks unto the end, I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end, I will sing. On the 17th of July, the nation lost Representative John R. Lewis, a civil rights icon who served in Congress for more than 3 decades, fighting issues of segregation, discrimination, and injustice, which have coalesced into the Black Lives Matter movement. This morning, we are fortunate to have with us State Assemblyman Gordon M. Johnson, who has served in the New Jersey Assembly since 2002, where he represents the 37th Legislative District. Assemblyman Johnson has graciously agreed to say a few words about John Lewis. Good morning, Assemblyman Johnson.
Good morning, everyone. Having a blessed day today. Okay, oh, I see hands waving. That's good. You could hear me. Great, yes. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words.
Hi, Gordon.
Waving it back there, too. Thank you for letting me say a few words to the people assembled here today at the Unitarian Church. As we mourn the passing of the legendary John Lewis, we honor his life of service and his principled dedication to the ideals of freedom and justice. In the civil rights movement, he worked to put an end to segregation in the United States. He helped organize the 1963 March on Washington, a march for jobs and freedom. And as we all have seen on the news clips and what have you, he was standing right next to Martin Luther King on that podium there on the stage. In 1965, Lewis led the Selma to Montgomery march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, that famous march. In that incident, became known as Bloody Sunday. Armed Alabama police attacked 600 unarmed civil rights demonstrators with gas and nightsticks. John Lewis suffered a fractured skull at the hands of the Alabama police. He later served in Congress from 1987, representing Georgia's 5th Congressional District. It's important that we recognize his enduring legacy as a civil rights leader who fought to end segregation and continued to fight for equality and justice through while his time in Congress, which he did for decades. Lewis received many honorary degrees and awards, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I had an opportunity to meet Congressman Lewis a few years ago when he came up here to New Jersey in support of a young man running for Congress, Congressman Josh Gottheimer. It's important that we remember not only his words, but his actions. John Lewis was fighting for civil rights and justice till the last days of his life. His powerful example will continue to guide us and inspire us to carry on and fight for equality and justice for all. As John Lewis fought for racial equality, I think we should mention the national conversation taking place today in regards to what we're seeing around us today. Not many issues captured the nation's attention during this pandemic, but the death of George Floyd at the hands of police and its aftermath certainly did. I condemn the murderous actions of these officers, which are yet another disgraceful example of racial violence by those entrusted to ensure the health and safety and the well-being of a community. And as the first African-American sheriff of Bergen County, a longtime police officer in the city of Inglewood, and now a member of the state assembly, I have always aimed to build bridges and establish positive relationships between communities. Police work and methods should be rooted in professional conduct that creates safe and trusting bonds between the residents and the police department. So, as we go forward and remember this great hero, I'd like to add one more name to this list. I'd like to mention one more name, and the name is Viola Gregg Lyouzo. I think I pronounced that right. I don't know if you know her. Viola was an activist, civil rights activist who lost her life in March of 1965 in Alabama. She traveled from Detroit to Alabama and to fight for equality, voter registration drives and what have you, and was killed by the Ku Klux Klan in 1965. Viola was a member of a Unitarian church in Detroit. So when I think of all those folks that lost their lives who were part of the struggle, I also think of Viola Gregg Lyouzo. So thank you for allowing me to say a few words today, and I'll please continue the service. I'm done. Uh-oh, everybody's muted.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much, Assemblyman Johnson. Our best wishes to you and your family.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jean Namitz for all our visitors. I'm the Director of Religious Education. And it is my honor to do our first reading this morning, which is by Thandika, who is a Unitarian Universalist minister and author. And the name of the reading is called The Legacy of Caring. She writes, "Despair is my private pain, born from what I have failed to say, failed to do, failed to overcome. Be still, my inner self. Let me rise to you. Let me reach down into your pain and soothe you. I turn to you to renew my life. I turn to the world, the streets of the city, the worn tapestry of brokerage firms, drug dealers, private estates, personal things in the bag lady's cart, rage and pain in the faces that turn from me, afraid of their own inner worlds. This common world I love anew, as the lifeblood of generations who refused to surrender their humanity in an inhumane world courses through my veins. From within this world, my despair is transformed to hope, and I begin anew the legacy of caring."
Hi, is Kristen Blumel here? Board member, Kristen Blumel? No?
She's here.
Okay.
Here.
It's her turn to talk.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for.
There she is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Kristen Blumel, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. Every Sunday that we gather, we ask for an offering to support the work of this congregation. Our mission statement here at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood is to grow in mind and spirit, to act with love and justice, and to transform ourselves and the world. Our mission is no less than the transformation of our own minds and hearts and of the entire world. As you know, that takes work, passion, and the sharing of your talents. It also takes money. We have been so grateful for the way that you have all sustained USR during this strange time with your hearts and minds and generous offerings. If ever there was a time for transformation in our nation, this is it. This moment will ask a lot of us, and we will stay committed to what at USR have always sought, a world of justice, freedom, and equality. We know that in this moment, there are among us those who are unable to financially support the congregation and instead find themselves in need of support. If this is you, please let us help. Reach out to Reverend Sarah or the caring teams. For those of us who can give, please keep doing so with the mission of this place in mind. Your gifts are truly appreciated. On your screen, you will see a few ways to give. If you are on Realm with us, you can give right through the app. And if you want to learn more about Realm, please email the office. You can send a check to our address at 113 Cottage Place in Ridgewood, New Jersey, 7450. You can use the Donate Now button on our website, or you can use the very easy text to give. Just text capital letters UU Ridgewood plate with the dollar amount to 73256. That's 73256. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Okay, before we get to our wonderful guests, Kristen and I have the honor of reading about them. And I'm going to go first with my dear friend Dave. David Kerr graduated Lehigh University in 1964 with a BA in psychology. He went on to take courses at Columbia University Graduate School of Social Work and subsequently obtained his master's degree in sociology at the New School for Social Research. He began his work career in Newark in 1965 as a New Jersey State Parole officer. Most of his parolees were heroin addicts. Dave fully invested himself in trying to help them, leading to the eventual founding of Integrity House in Newark in 1968. Integrity House is still in operation, now with state and national accreditation and funding. One of New Jersey's first drug treatment programs treating people with serious mental health disorders as well as chronic addiction. Dave was founding chair of the New Jersey Certification Board and was very involved nationally in mitigating the addiction epidemic. He was president of the Therapeutic Communities of America, TCA, and wrote the working definition of the TC in 1980. He retired from Integrity House in 2012, but still works in the field supporting people online. Now, this is my favorite part. Musically gifted, Dave has been involved with music throughout his entire life. A dedicated composer, his output includes 10 symphonies and a body of choral pieces. And now we'll have Kristen talk about Keaton.
Keaton Douglas, the creator and executive director of the I Thirst Initiative, is a consultant, educator, counselor, and frequent speaker, including radio and TV appearances in the field of addiction and recovery, particularly as it pertains to the interface with spirituality. I Thirst Initiative is a comprehensive program which focuses on said spirituality in the prevention, treatment, and aftercare of those suffering from substance use disorders, as well as of their families. Its curriculum has been taught in Boston, Camden, Costa Rica, and is soon coming to Seton Hall University as part of their continuing education program. Keaton is a founding member of NJ-DART, the New Jersey Diocesan Addiction and Recovery Task Force. She and her team work regularly with men and women in recovery, helping them develop an intimacy with the divine power of their understanding. To that end, she and her team interface with Freedom House, Hendricks House, Cura, Straight and Narrow, and Turning Point, all facilities that play a role in the continuum of care for the afflicted. Her work was recently presented before the Organization of American States at their International Conference on Faith-Based Initiatives to Solve the Opioid Crisis. Prior to these activities, Keaton spent 25 years as a full-time vocalist and entertainer, performing at great jazz venues such as Birdland and Trumpets. She was the featured entertainment at 2 presidential inaugural balls and has sung both jazz and classical music at many venues throughout the US and abroad. So welcome, Dave and Keaton.
And Dave, you're on.
All right, I'm very impressed, Keaton, and humbled at what you've done for so many years. Just a little bit of background. I started Integrity in 1968, and it was a turbulent time in Newark. It was the time of riots and rebellions. And I started right after college as a state parole officer. So I knew a lot of the rebellious men. And we had sit-down sessions to try to calm down the riots and the hurtful physical activity that was going on. In any event, I went on with the help of a lot of my parolees to start a program called Integrity House in Newark. And Integrity's expanded, serving close to 3,000 people now a year. Just a quick information about drug addiction. Heroin addiction actually is on the increase again. It started maybe in 1958 with Chuck Dietrich and Synanon trying to help people with the heroin problem. And then it swelled and backed off and swelled and backed off. In the 80s, to try to fix the heroin problem, the psychiatrists came out with prescription drugs and a thing called MAT, medical assisted treatment, which is nothing but a morphine-based buprenorphine, Suboxone. So another addictive substance to help the addicts. Well, what happened in the 60s with the attempt to fix the drug problem was a use of methadone. What's happening in 2020 is a new innovative program called MAT, medical assisted treatment. And basically, it's going to have the same results where, in my opinion anyway, where people want to get high. So they're going to do their MAT and then they're going to go get alcohol like they did in the 60s or other drugs, which are plentiful around. So the problem is not, the drugs and trying to figure a drug solution. Problem is our culture, a culture of addiction, a culture of needing what I would call in the field a quick fix. Heroin has flooded the urban areas in the 60s, and now it's flooded the suburban areas. It's a very popular drug, not only in this country and other countries. It's a killer, but what makes it even worse is the drug fentanyl, which is also out there. And so the creative pharmacists of the streets put together these concoctions that get people real high. And the fact of the matter, and one outdoes the next, and pretty soon people are dying. You've probably read about the deaths from overdoses in our country. So right now, I'm sad to say that all my great work in the field for 50 years has done nothing but watch the problem increase. And it's accelerating even as I speak. I think the one way that I'm trying to make a difference is exactly what we're doing here. This is a video conferencing type of mechanism. Zoom is excellent. And I think what we're trying to do is work with people and maintain their sobriety and their staying off of drugs through video conferencing as best we can. One of the biggest problems in our brain culture now is that we think once we treat something like drug addiction, we can fix it. Well, drug addiction is not a treatable disease. Drug addiction is a way of life. And people don't seem to understand that. A way of life is how you walk, how you talk, how you look, how you carry yourself. And part of that is the drug phenomenon. A way of life is very difficult and very different to help fix. Unfortunately, the psychiatrists have treated it as an illness, and they have used medications and so on to treat this illness. And of course, the same thing is happening now with the medications. They're abusing the medications and finding other street drugs to get themselves high. So we are going about the process of helping addicts in the exact wrong way. Some people will respond to medication-assisted treatment. Most will do the same as they did in the 60s. find another drug, whether it be alcohol or several other drugs on the market. So my plea is, or my statement is, that right now we have a culture of addiction, a culture of quick fix, a culture of using drugs and other substances to get high. And until that culture begins to slow down and change direction, we will always have this heroin problem, and people are going to continue dying. Thank you.
Well, I think I'm up. Thank you
We have a
so
song
much.
first. We have
Good
Katie,
song.
Can you hear me? We have a song
Yes,
first.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
never mind.
anticipation is growing for you.
Oh, it's growing.
There we go.
If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody he is traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain. If I can do my duty as a person ought, if I can bring back beauty to a world abroad, if I can spread love's message as the Master taught, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain.
David, that was beautiful. That was a beautiful song that was sung by David, composed by David. And it was so wonderful to see the pictures of Integrity House. Forgive me for being so excited about being here, but if you know me, you know that if you were behind me online at the ShopRite for more than a minute and a half, I'm going to start talking to you about this subject matter because it's so close to my heart. So I apologize for that. Jumping the gun. What a magnificent song, and thank you, David, for that. And thank you, everyone, for allowing me to be here. Thanks, Ron. You know, as the beautiful service was beginning, I was taking some notes about some of the things that all of you had said, and some of the things that popped in. Kristen sang so beautifully, and one of the lines that she sang, and he ain't heavy, he's my brother, is his welfare is my concern. Another thing, Jean, I think you were reading The Legacy of Caring. And Kristen was talking about the transformation of heart and the transformation of the entire world. And then there was a line, a refusal to surrender one's humanity in an inhumane world. And I was so struck by each one of those sayings because it is so much in keeping with what I'd like to share with you this morning. And that is the concept, as we're talking about those that are suffering from substance abuse disorders, and the fact that this is an epidemic within the grander scheme of the pandemic. You know, addiction of all sorts is truly a societal malady. Pandemic notwithstanding, with 1 in every 6 people suffering, according to SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration of our United States. 1 in every 6 persons suffering. That means that this is a disease that affects so many of us. And while it is absolutely true that there are physiological and mental health things associated with issues associated with any sort of addiction, the hallmark of an addicted lifestyle, the unworthiness, the feelings of unworthiness, the guilt, the shame, these are ultimately parts of one's spiritual condition, and as a result require a spiritual remedy. What my programs for the I Thirst Initiative try to do is to seek to work with individuals to try to help them develop an intimacy with the divine presence in their life, no matter what that means to them. To help them develop a relationship with that which is so transcendent that will not only bring sobriety, but will bring joy and will bring healing. We want all people to celebrate a life of abundance, and it's so important. To that end, what we are trying to do is something that I think is most pertinent right now, if I may say. You know, recently there was an article by a Ms. Amy Sokolow in Stat Plus, which is an online website that keeps statistics. She wrote that there are millions of dollars that are being slashed from states for programs that serve those with behavioral health and substance abuse disorders because monies need to be transferred to COVID. Here in the state of New Jersey, we have slashed monies that are going to go to future programs that had been planned. This is an opportune time to do exactly what we have been trying to get folks to do since our inception, and that is the involvement of faith communities, the training of people of the spirit like yourselves to take an active role in working with people who are sick and suffering and their families, so that you can help provide spiritual consolation as well as recovery resource information. To that end, our curriculum was created. It's been taught, it will be taught at Seton Hall University, as was mentioned earlier in the fall. We are teaching people in faith communities how to shepherd people, to accompany them in this process. Our work as people of the Spirit is more important now than ever, because in a time where we have all been forced to isolate, isolation is a hallmark of the disease of addiction. And now people who are suffering are not in community. They have been forced to isolate. And so those that we see, the people I serve and that I love, are suffering more now than ever before. And with no monies left to helping them, it will fall on communities of faithful people, people of the Spirit, people who believe His welfare is my concern, people who believe that we need a transformation of hearts, people who believe we need a transformation in the world. This is what we are doing. And so I'm going to invite you to join me, to follow me on LinkedIn at Keaton Douglas, and also to please investigate our website at ithirstinitiative.org. We too are trying to transform the world by shaking up all faith communities to do not what I believe is their role, but their obligation to help those that are sick and suffering, those who are vulnerable, those who are marginalized, those who society has forgotten. It's our role as people of spirit, all peoples of all spirit. To that ends, we work with people of all faiths, all cultures, all races, etc. Together, inclusively to work. Why is this important? Well, I'd like to introduce somebody. Ron, may I introduce my wonderful friend, James?
Absolutely, I can't wait to meet him.
Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I'm so delighted to be with you, aside from talking about my greatest passion, is to introduce to you somebody who embodies everything that we're talking about today. This gentleman, I have worked with a number of times, but he actually is the bridge between the work that David has done so beautifully all these years and the work that I do now and so many of us on our respective teams do. This young man has a relationship both with the Integrity House as well as with the I Thirst initiative. And I look to him because he's an example of something that I think is important, that I never want anyone to forget. That everyone that we see, that we walk past on the streets, everyone has a unique human dignity. And people of the spirit are called to recognize that unique human dignity. No matter how we look upon them or other society looks upon them and says they are wretched, this is their fault. They don't understand the disease. Because that person sleeping on that bench in Newark's Penn Station was this beautiful man that I'm going to introduce you to right now. My friend, one of my besties, my brother, and somebody who's got the most powerful message I think you'll hear. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to James Maneri.
Wow, well, if I'm not on fire right now from all of that right there, I don't know what could set me ablaze. First of all, my name is James Maneri and I am a recovering addict. Before I begin, let me just say thank you so much to Assemblyman Johnson, Mr. Carr for believing in my voice, Miss Kristen for your amazing, amazing sound that you brought into my living room that I'm sitting in, and of course, the brilliant and lovely Miss Keaton Douglas, and everyone else that put this together. I only have 6 minutes, so I set a timer for myself so that way I can learn as well as listen. I've understood that it's so important to not only listen, but learn. And one of the great beliefs that I have is that I have a voice. My voice is something that I will utilize today because I have found it once again from self-oppression. I tried to kill for a very long time somebody that I didn't even know, which was myself. And I used to live in Newark Penn Station on a bench. I say that not lightly. I say that with complete truth and acceptance as well. At 28 years old, I went to the dentist and took a Vicodin. They gave it to me for a pulled wisdom tooth. About 20 minutes later, when that pill dissolved and entered my system, what it did at that moment was allow me to not be that bullied little boy and feel the loneliness and the abandonment and not feel different, or the little boy that was in the middle of the gym class when everybody was picking teams and I was not picked because I was different. That little boy no longer existed, and I found a false freedom. And I followed that for as long as I could until there was self-deprivation, self-degradation, there was isolation, right? They say, one of our sayings in recovery is an addict left alone with his or her own thoughts and in bad company. True, until the healing process begins. Until you become a recovering addict as opposed to an addict that is stagnant or that has not learned the derivative of their pain. I had to seek it out. I didn't want to live. And again, I believe without my permission, I was lifted up from that bench. I was lifted up from the homeless shelters, from the detoxes, from the psychiatric units, from the prisons, from the jails, from the street corners. There is no length that I didn't go to get my next one, because the reality was, fix me, heal me, make me not feel what I am and what my truth is. I am an Italian-American gay male. I live authentically in that. And the God that I have found in recovery has allowed me to know that I have a loving and mighty God. That when I came into addiction, ladies and gentlemen, when I came into recovery, I did not like the God that I was introduced to as a child, because it was a God of bondage that bonded me to the beliefs that I was learning I must abide by. Didn't work for me. In my humanness and in my spirit, I had to find another way. And there were men and women like Keaton and other people who said, hey, look, the God that you believe hated you isn't the one I know. Let me introduce you to him. And I was rebellious in that in the beginning, because there were prayers to a God I didn't believe in during my journey that were not answered. I believed. I also come in my evolution to understand that prayers were answered in their appropriate time for their appropriate walk, right? I am now standing in, I have to stop a second. When those images of the African-American men that were being shown, the word chains came to my head. We, as I stated earlier, have a voice that must invoke and provoke change and evolution. I, as a recovering addict, will not stand in the chains that some people who are not willing to evolve in their knowledge and say, this is not someone who is going to be a failure his whole life. I will not allow that. I broke free from that chains and will continue to, because guess what? I'm flawed. And in my humanness, I understand that I will never be perfect. And I am so grateful for that, because that makes me know I am not my God. Only my higher power is perfection in his plan for me, in his enlightenment for me. Mr. Kerr, I must say to you, you spoke of words saying that your work has sort of become stagnant or did not matter. The foundation, Mr. Kerr, that you built allowed me to walk through them hallways as broken as I could, surrounded by other men and women who said, hey, no matter what, you don't have to use. And I listened to them. And even though I couldn't really hear many of them, Mr. Kerr, at that moment, there was a bigger purpose that was without my plan. So the foundation that you built, please understand, it matters. There are still men there thriving. We're calling that right now Recovery Campus. Yes, there is a epidemic within the pandemic, as Ms. Keaton said so very well. That is my time. So give me another 30 seconds and we're closing it up. I want to say this. In your journey, use your voice. Use the empowerment that you have gotten that you have the ability to reach others. Don't just sit in your couches. Don't just stay in the house when your spirit says it's time to help. Be the help. Be the help. And it is my hope and my prayer that today and every day you evolve into your purpose. Thank you so much, and may God continue to bless all of you on your journey.
Thank you,
James. You're a wonderful advocate for the spiritual side of all these things. We thank you so much. I would love to have you back sometime and continue this dialogue or trialogue or whatever it is. But thank you extremely much. I had hoped to have kind of an open forum, but your eloquent, everybody's eloquent comments have kind of, taken us to where we are now, which is the top of the hour. So I would invite Keaton and Dave to give a two-part summation. One address to addicts out there that might be despairing right now in terms of the unavailability of resources to help them, and then one thought for our congregants here, what they can do to help. So why don't we go, Keaton? You still there?
I'm here. I certainly am.
Okay.
First, to those that are still sick and suffering, I want them to know that they are heard, they are seen, they are loved. and that there are many, many people out there who love them and want to accompany them in this journey, and we will find you. And never to feel as though you are alone, because there are so many of us that will shepherd you through, accompany you through this journey, and love you. We want to accompany them on their journey of transformation so that they can find their authentic selves, and in so doing, develop an intimacy with the higher power of their understanding and divine presence. We are there to help them. For everyone else, I say join us on this journey. It's time for faith communities to step up. We can't be silent anymore. We too have a voice, and we have to play a part in this very, very major societal malady. That's what we're called upon to do in the spirit. He ain't heavy. He's my brother. Let's live it. Amen.
Ron, if I may say first off, quickly, the problem is primarily genetic. The solution is in the person who has the disease. You can get coaching and so on, but it's your responsibility to essentially pull yourself up and change your lifestyle to move away from all that brought drugs into your sphere. As far as a word to society and to our culture, your understanding is imperative. This is a complex disease, a complex social phenomenon. You can be part of the fix if you understand it better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your remarks. Thank you. We now invite you to extinguish the chalice. Please join us in these words. We extinguish the flame, but may the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action burn bright in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you again very much, Assemblyman Johnson, Dave Kerr, Keaton Douglas, and James Manieri for being with us today. We appreciate your very, very inspiring words. Thank you. In closing, I would like to leave you with these words attributed to Dr. John Watson, who was a minister of the Free Church of Scotland. He wrote under the pen name Ian McLaren. Be kind. Everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful day.